Bethany Zill is a familiar face at White Stallion Ranch, and her love of ranching is obvious in this edition of the Cowboy Up podcast. Bethany grew up on a ranch in North Dakota and is part of a fifth-generation ranching family. Alan Day was raised at Lazy Bee Ranch in Arizona with his sister Sandra, who went on to become the first female Supreme Court Justice of the United States, Sandra Day O'Connor. Bethany created a film about the Lazy Bee with the help of first-hand stories from Alan Day. Bethany's film has been nominated for 2 awards in the upcoming Tombstone Film Festival because she was able to coax stories out of Alan about growing up on the ranch, cloud seeding, his sister, and conversations he had with God. This one was a lot of fun. Stay until the end for some new music from Bethany on this edition of the Cowboy Up podcast. Welcome to the Cowboy Up podcast, where talk is all about the West, things that are in the West and people that do things in the West. My name is Steve Clausen, and the host of this incredible podcast is Russell True, the owner of White Stallion Ranch. Today I am blessed. I'm sitting here with Russell. Russell, how are you?
I'm good. My voice is better.
Your voice sounds great, actually.
Off for a while. It doesn't sound great.
You know, you want him to not talk when his voice sounds bad, but this is not really the profession he's in. He's got too many people here that want to come up and talk to him, and he's got to talk to him, and he loves that. That's a good portion of what it is he does. Well, today, Russell, I'm in the presence of greatness because I've got you, I've got Bethany Zill, I've got Lynn, and we have Alan Day, who grew up on the Lazy Bee Ranch, and we're here to talk about the Lazy Bee Ranch, and I couldn't be happier. Bethany, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, and it's really an honor to be here with you.
Well, it's an honor to have everybody in this room. I'm the one that least belongs here, but I'm just I'm gonna roll with it, right? That's the best thing that I know how to do. Alan is in the room, and Alan spent a minute or two on Lazy Bee Ranch, and what I've read, and I saw this incredible movie that I think you did that's going to be featured in the Tombstone Film Festival.
Yes, that's right. It's called The Legendary Lazy Bee. We filmed a year and a half ago right here at the White Stallion Ranch. So it's come full circle, and I do want to just acknowledge a big thank you to Russell for allowing us to film out here. And what started out as one project, it quickly became something else. It was very serendipitous how this happened, and as if it was just meant to be for this documentary about the Lazy Bee to happen.
Well, and the Lazy Bee's got so many facets to it, but I want to go back and touch on what you said about the White Stallion. Don't you find it amazing when you drive up the road into the White Stallion how your entire viewpoint on everything changes?
Yes.
When you look at Russell's mom's mountains, because I'm sorry, that's what my wife calls them. She insists that I do the same thing. They're Russell's mom's mountains. And
she thought they were hers, too.
Pardon me?
She thought they were hers,
no,
too.
I know she did. We've seen the videos.
They actually were for a while. And then the government got them.
Well, the government stepped in? Come on, I know better than that. So, Russell, I want you to talk with Bethany here about some of the things that you all have in common and how this project came about, because this was not an easy project, I don't think.
That's right. It's been a labor of love, I have to say, and I just want to honor Alan and the Day family and Lynn. They've been absolute joy to work with and the real deal. And if I just really want to point that out, that in this world you don't always come across people who are real, and they are.
Yeah.
And they have treated me like pure gold, and I've told them that, and I wanted everyone else to know that, and it's a beautiful thing, and I cherish it.
Well, Russell, when they wanted to do this project here, I would imagine you immediately jumped at the chance, didn't you?
Well, and I mean, something that's important to talk about is that just certain things were shot here, just mainly for convenience for Alan, because he could be interviewed here, or anywhere, and so a lot of what they did here was really just that, and then we stuck in a few filler stuff. So, that was a no-brainer. Of course, I mean we do a lot of stuff, and of course this one was one we would love to do, and we're honored to be an official part of it. The thing about this documentary that really surprises me, actually, I was thinking about it this morning. I was thinking, how in the world did Bethany Zill get the opportunity to do this now? Why wasn't this done 10 years ago, 20 years ago? And when they could have interviewed Sandra and Ann, and as well as Alan, because they were all raised there. And this is such a core American story. On this podcast, we talked about how President Reagan had Sandra Day O'Connor into his office for an interview, and he started out by asking her, "I hear you're a ranch kid," and then she answered yes, and then the conversation for the 30 or 45 minutes, which is a long time in presidential time, just centered on that life, and then she left feeling like, yeah, I think I got this. And it's just such an important story that this person, because of her qualifications and her intellect and talent and all the things that a few people are blessed with, she leaves very rural Arizona, New Mexico, and goes to Stanford University and becomes the first female Supreme Court justice. So the ranch should have been a documentary 20 years ago. No offense to you. It's just what a great opportunity that someone left on the table for you.
I have to give the good Lord the credit for that. Yeah. I really do. It's I have to pinch myself. And the Lazy Bee was really a building block to Sandra's successes. And even though that's, it's about the ranch, but just to give you an overview of what it is. Alan recounts the 3 generations of the Day family on the Lazy Bee Ranch, remarkable stories of lives of the cowboys, horses, animals, the people, and the impact it had on the world. Stories of pure grit to keep the ranch going. Alan's stories shine a light on what Sandra describes as the can-do mentality and a shaping of character of life on the Lazy Bee. Alan's almost wild determination to keep it going. I mean, when this, not to tell too much, but I mean, the stories are epic. Cloud seeding, hearing the voice of God.
Just what I was thinking
about. That was so much fun to listen
it.
to. That really was.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I'll figure that out, and she did.
Yeah.
And something you said here that really struck with me is caretaker, because I'm sure it wasn't easy to hold on to that ranch for that period of time. There were boom times and there were bust times, and those bust times were probably pretty scary. And they figured it out, and it's quite remarkable. Now, the big question I have: how did you come to know Alan and Sandra?
I didn't know Sandra.
Oh, you didn't know Sandra. Okay.
I wish I
How did you come to know Alan, though?
There again, it was serendipitous. I contacted Lynn because I wanted to interview Alan about a different project, a smaller project. That project never really happened because it was very obvious that this is the project that was really meant to be.
Excellent. And you went deep with it, didn't you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, how much time did you spend ramping up to be able to do this project? Because I've listened to the interviews that you had with Alan, and I can't believe it was just one interview. I've got to think it was more than one, wasn't it?
Well, we actually did a short one at his apartment. It was very short, but no, it was basically the one sit-down interview.
Seriously, that's incredible. Yeah. And Alan just rolled off with the story after story. And it's kind of like sitting back, and not to draw a comparison, it's like talking to Russell about White Stallion. It's just like, this is not just history. This is something these two gentlemen have lived. And they're both caretakers, if you will.
Yes, they are. Yes. All credit to Alan, the way he can tell stories like no one else. And like you say, it was just just spitting it out, and so meaningful. You can see in his eyes almost tearing up in certain places, and such emotion that people are going to really feel like they know him.
Absolutely, and it's just sitting here right before we went live on our podcast. He was telling a story about a boxer and his horse Chico, and how the two of them became such fast friends. And it was like he was stepping back in time when he told that story. This was something that was real for him, and I think that's what the entire film was about. It was just how real everything was.
You can see it in his eyes.
Absolutely,
he's seeing it, and you just get it reflected back, and yeah, it's incredible. I mean, my son, who's 27 years old, when he first watched it, he was like, I want to watch more. I mean, he couldn't get enough of it, and he's just an average young person, and he loved it. I mean, I also just have to point out that I very much relate to Sandra. I know this is going in a different direction, but just that I grew up on a 5-generation ranch in North Dakota, and my brother took, it's been passed down, and I left the ranch, but it's so important to me, and just in the same way, it was important to Sandra, important to Alan, and everyone. I just had to note that I very much relate to it, so it kind of parallels that way.
Well, and sadly, I think growing up on a ranch is something that we're seeing a whole lot less of than we ever did, because it's not always easy, is it?
No.
Well, I think that one of the things that it's not one of the things, it's the thing, is that if you don't read one of Alan's books or watch this documentary or watch something of a similar subject matter, you really have no idea what this life is like. And the Lazy Bee has some differences from a lot of ranches. I mean, you had, Alan, how many employees did you have? 3 that were with you over 50 years? It becomes, somebody said to me about this ranch last night, it's kind of coincidental to my point. They said, this is they'd never been here. And they said, it's like nothing I've ever seen before. It's almost like a little town. But these ranches, like Alan's, the Lazy Bee, they are little towns, even though there's not that many structures, and it's all sort of ranch-based. But people have no concept, and why would they, what it's like when the nearest town to your ranch is Duncan. How far was Duncan? 22 miles, and then the next place was Lordsburg? 35. So if you needed something, that was probably where you went, right? Mm-hmm. Lordsburg, because as you always said, if you blinked, you missed Duncan. And Duncan's kind of a cool little place. I've been back there a few times now because of you, but it just is a completely, totally different, and that doesn't mean it's better or worse. It is just different. And you said it earlier, it's the can-do, it's the self-reliance. If you don't know how to get that windmill back to pumping water, then, you're going to have to wait until somebody comes, and maybe that'll be a while. So you're going to be thirsty. And more importantly, your cattle are going to, there's just so many facets of these vast, mostly wild, uninhabited places. 250 square miles that ranch was. Alan's nodding.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's, how many Manhattans fit in the Lazy Bee. So it's a glimpse into a very, very different lifestyle and an experience and culture that, as you said, shaped Sandra's very different life after she left.
Yes, and she said the broad answer to her success was things she learned there on the ranch. And it is such a unique life. It is a world unto itself when you live on a ranch like that. And I think also what was so special is Alan's relationship with the land, the respect of the land and the animals, and the love of animals. That's what struck me about him right away from the very beginning, and why I really loved the guy, is because he's got this very tender heart, and he loves, the stories you tell about the animals, the bobcat, the javelinas, not to give it all away, but the sparrowhawk is so precious. And just your stewardship of the land, you taking care of the land, the grass, what the cattle are eating. It's all important.
Well, I think, I think Alan was just ahead of his time, because I'm around ranchers a fair amount, and not just dude ranchers, but people that are, as was described to me years ago, turning grass and forage into beef. That's the essence of cattle ranching, is pretty true. And a lot of people, for obvious reasons, concentrate on their genetics. They concentrate on their breeding program. They concentrate on, a lot of things that are sort of animal-centered. And Alan took it to the real genesis of it all, which was the grass. And he always talks about happy grass, and talks about, the range restoration stuff that they did, and the BLM was and wasn't cooperative, and as any of those stories generally roll out. But the essence was, if you treated the land correctly, then you got good grass, happy grass in Alan's term, and then you get fat cattle. And fat cattle are, the product in whatever model that ranch is following. That's the product. But he was out ahead of it, because now, you hear people, instead of talking about what grass species are on the property, now they're talking about interactions, soil types, precipitation, range restoration through, and the government has had a shift in thinking. I was just at a farm where the NRCS had funded coming in and mechanically removing mesquite trees instead of spiking and all that stuff. So, Alan was doing this eons ago, and I remember when he was talking about going to the Sand Hills of Nebraska and was doing his rotational stuff, and people are going, "What are you doing? We've been here a lot of time. We don't, you're nuts, man. You're in the Arizona sun too long."
There you go.
And then when you left, they were all doing it.
True.
Yeah.
And so you left the Sand Hills of Nebraska better than you found it. And they benefited by your time there. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to take a break, and we'll be right back.
In 2025, experience-based travel is expected to be all the rage, and there's no better place to look than the Dude Ranch Association. Our ranches are all vetted and ready to show you the time of your life. We offer everything from very basic to extreme luxury and everything in between. Our ranches look forward to hosting you and showing you an experience and something you will never forget. Visit duderanch.org for more information. That's duderanch.org. We look forward to seeing you, and get ready to saddle up.
Russell, something we talked about in the first half of our podcast, we talked about the fact that they had this ranch that was a plus or minus 250 square miles, which is really hard for me to get my head around how big that is. And they ran it with 3 cowboys that had been there for 50 years, so their entire life. And one of the things that comes out in this film is Alan says these weren't just cowboys, they became members of the family. They had Christmas and Thanksgiving and their other holidays with them.
Well, who else are you going to spend?
Well, like you said, you're not going to have too many other people. But these people didn't have MBAs, and I mean, some of them had PhDs because they were post-hole diggers. But aside from that, they didn't have much, and they figured it out. And like you said, they came up with this amazing beef, and I find it remarkable. And in this day and age, can you imagine somebody staying at a job for 50 years?
Well, I mean, we had Judy Bellini here who stayed 59, 58. But yeah, no, it's just, the culture almost demands you not do that.
Right.
And, I would think, I will say that for the people who are willing to put in the work and the hours, because we'll say forget the hours, that are willing to put in the work and live rural and accept that lifestyle with all its benefits and challenges, those folks are more typically going to stay for a while because they're an outlier as a person, and they're getting rarer to find. But if that's what they want, that's where you get it. And excuse me, Allen's Ranch is the Lazy Bee is not typical in its scale, and it's not as, it is more remote than many ranches. I mean, there are ranches that have more proximity to a Walmart. The iconic, most important thing in America. But so this ranch was more of its own little jurisdiction, and I imagine remains that way at some level. Alan, is that fair? You're nodding yes.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I know you showed up here. You talked about Judy that had been here 59 years. You showed up here about 60 years ago, didn't you? Almost.
Well, it was against my will, but I was not against my will. I wasn't called in to make part of the decision, but I felt lucky from day one, and I've worked here full time 45 years. 44, because I started at 20, my senior year of college. I went full time here while I went to college. So, yeah, I've been here a while, and things changed. But Allen's Ranch was founded in 1880. That's kind of the banner year for so many ranches. Our little Tombstone Ranch was founded in 1880, and that's when a combination of several things sort of created the right climate for people to come out, not climate like weather, but climate for demand, safety, people post-Civil War, all these different things that came together that brought people to a part of the country that they were trying to get through as quickly as possible to get somewhere else. And then all of a sudden, ranching got started. 1880 was really almost a seminal year. I mean, a few ranches are a few years before that, but most are in that 1880 range. And of course, we've talked a lot about how Allen's Ranch got founded, and the nephew who lured your grandfather in. But the ranch was owned by the family for 113 years, and was sold in 93 because Allen, like so many people that era, felt, you'll correct me if I say this wrong, but you felt like public lands ranching on particularly BLM land was endangered and might be coming to an end. And you're nodding yes. So, that was part of, and I think, that era of when, ironically, Secretary of Interior Bruce Babbitt, who grew up in a ranching family, was considered the most unfriendly to public lands ranching in the history of the U.S. He and, to some lesser extent, President Clinton were thinking that the way forward was to remove grazing from public lands. Is that you agree? And so that was kind of a time with a lot of worry attached, and of course I think now people are, I read that they used to they would bring sheep vast numbers of sheep into the LA area to take the growth down until they didn't like the environmental impact of that. And it was all intended to reduce wildfire risk, because it's been, the Spanish explorer in 15 whatever said, oh, it's the land of smoke. That was in the 1500s. There was nobody, smoking cigarettes.
Might be a good idea to return to that. I don't know.
So anyway, the point is, things have changed.
Yeah.
I think the government and ranching has come to Alan's thinking.
Yeah.
He just should have come there sooner.
Yeah. So, Bethany, as I was going through this, you call it a film, I call it a movie because I've watched it 3 or 4 times. I won't lie. It was very clear that the amount of emotion you were able to get out of Alan. Now, was that natural, or what did that look like when you were doing it? Was that just who Alan is when he talks about the lazy bee?
Well, he has a lot of heart. I'd like to think we had a connection. We were, you look.
Well, I think that was clear.
So I think he just has a lot of heart. No matter, I've noticed with no matter who he's speaking with, I've noticed he makes you feel like, he's very connected. So, but I'm not sure, but.
Okay, and I've got to think this is one of the best things you've ever been involved in.
Yes, I really believe it is. I mean, I've worked in film. I've produced All About Cowboys for Kids some years ago, All About Airplanes and Flying Machines, licensed by Boeing. But really, my life's work is preserving our Western heritage. This really is the pinnacle of that.
Okay.
This story. Even though this ranch was sold some time ago, it's a timeless story, and it's American history. It's very important. And that Sandra passed about a year ago. It is very interesting, the timing of this. But I do think it's forever lazy bee. Alan says in the film, he can just close his eyes and he's right back there. And we feel the same way when we watch it. And so that inspired a song that I wrote, the Lazy Bee song, that when you close your eyes, you're right there, and you're riding with him right into the sun, and you're right there.
And we're going to close with that, but Stephen already, he has a little more time than me, So I've only watched the film once, I have to admit. Watch it again. Where do people see it? I mean, they can go to Tombstone Film Festival. Let's follow up with that. But can people see it now? I mean, he's watching it. No.
Not yet.
He's just got a backdoor link.
I'm special.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? I am special. She told me that. And
she may have to
She gave
kill
me
you
passwords
later.
to look at it and permissions and everything else, and told me I couldn't share it.
So it's not available publicly yet. So Tombstone Film Festival is the next opportunity.
Yes, it's just in the film festival circuit right now, and then it'll someday be on TV. You can go to Tombstone Film Festival, January 25th at 3 o'clock, and I hope you all come.
Is that going to be in the Shefflin Hall, or
Yes.
where is it? Yeah. And that's a nice venue. I imagine it's not huge, so you may want to get there.
Yes, and I also wanted to say that I'm just so honored for Alan, for everyone involved, that it was nominated for 2 awards, Best Feature Film and Best Arizona Film. So it's a dream come true.
Well, and Alan is not exactly unknown in the state of Arizona or the state of New Mexico. He's kind of a rock star, if you will. And I mean, I know that the ranch was in his family for 113 years. What's become of the ranch since the new owners took it over? Do you know?
They continue to run it. I really haven't had much contact with them.
All right.
But I do thank them. I thank them that we could use footage from them and from the ranch that was taken. And also just want to give a shout out for all the people that gave of their time to be acting from the community of Tucson in the film. You know, it was kind of fun because I presented the opportunity, friends, neighbors, hey, you want to do this? People that I thought would be really good. And they're like, yeah, that'd be fun. You know, and they're like, you need more help? We'll help. You know, it's kind of fun. It was kind of a fun Arizona project.
Well, I'm just particularly touched that you and Alan and Lynn took your time, and Russell has allowed me to be involved in this, because this is awesome. This really is, and it's a way of life that, in my estimation, needs to be preserved and shared so people understand the impact of having it and what the potential impact is once it's gone.
Yes.
And I know that's something that Russell talks about frequently, is the fact that these ranches, once they leave hands, sometimes they never return, and they get developed or whatever, and that particularly saddens him. And it's a big deal.
Well, I think, you know, I mean, I'm in no way alone. I have a, you know, because I'm a dude rancher, and I have some ability to help dude ranches. You know, I think there's a lot of people who appreciate working cattle ranches' role in the West. And I think there are a lot of people who are working toward preserving them, and the government included. I mean, there's tax incentives and there's easements, development easements or whatever, conservation easements, whatever terms you use. So I think ranches are getting some attention and some preservation. Since we can't watch the film unless you have Steve's secret code, people, I just want to remind people, if you want an insight into the ranch and that unique Western lifestyle, the book that Sandra and Alan wrote together, The Lazy Bee, we've got Horse Lover, which is specifically talking about the Mustang Meadows, 1,500 Mustangs, and Alan's unique approach to taking care of a bunch of unadoptable wild horses, feral horses more technically, and Cowboy Up, which we're named after, is Alan's book, which really gives you an insight. Was he Jim Brister, who cauterized his own cavity with the hot iron in the barn? I mean, it still sends chills right up my spine.
Oh, yeah, mine too.
Alan tells that story.
Yes, he does.
As well as the other cowboys that worked there for over 50 years.
Yeah.
Rastus.
And that was a very difficult story to listen to. I won't even lie.
You only have to hear that once. You won't toss that out of your memory too soon. But there's a lot of those stories, and so until the film festival circuit ends and it's on TV, prep yourself with some good reading or go down to Tombstone. What's next up after Tombstone? Is that scheduled yet?
Arizona Film Festival in Tucson. It'll be at that festival.
Is that the one at the Loft?
I believe so.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when is that? Do you know offhand?
I think it's in March.
Okay, in March.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
And that's actually a film festival that's gotten some pretty good attention. A friend of mine's wife runs that, and they've really gotten some real top billing in the film festival thing, which is, I think, a growing trend around the country. So
it's excellent.
Is there something in your investigating of this, or some story Alan told you, or something that sort of jumped off the page or jumped off the film to you that you didn't see coming or didn't expect?
So many things. When he heard the voice of God. I don't know how much. I don't know how much to tell, but Alan did hear the voice of God, and he listened, and it saved probably some lives because of it.
Right, and that's the cloud seeding where it says, "Don't seed today."
Right.
And it's one of my favorite stories, and if a different person told you, you'd go, "Yeah, what'd you smoke that morning?"
Yes.
And
I don't think Alan does that.
I knew where that voice came from.
No.
But with Alan, you go, "Yeah, that happened." And that is, that's a story that has far greater meaning and broader impact than I think Alan not seeding the clouds that day.
I'm going to break in here a minute. I said I wouldn't, but I'm going to break in for just a minute. This is one that I haven't ever told, but my cowboys that I was so fond of and that stayed at the ranch for 50 years, one of them was Claude Tibbetts, and Claude was just the nicest, hardest working, honest guy that anybody ever met. And so he got sick. He was getting pretty old and he got sick. So I took him down to the hospital in Safford and left him there, and they said, well, we'll look after him and I don't know if they said he'll get better or what, but it turned out that I was then having to testify in a land use matter here in Tucson, about use of public land. And I had to, and Claude in the meantime was in the hospital. And so I had to leave the ranch at 2 o'clock in the morning to get over here to Tucson to testify at this thing. So I got up and left, and just as I walked out the door, it was the hospital in Safford. They said, you better get down here. And I walked in his room as he died.
Wow.
And I just, I've always been so grateful to somebody for tying that together, and for getting me in Safford to say goodbye to Claude.
Wow. Yeah, that's not too powerful. Wow, that's incredible. Thank you for sharing that, Alan.
Now, on that note, we're going to hand it to Bethany, who's going to play the Lazy Bee song.
Down a desert trail, the cattle stray. You're looking for the one, that cowboy on his horse with the saw, gently calling you home. When he blows your weary armies there by his side, and you're riding into the setting sun. Wild and free, forever you'll be the one and only lazy bee. It's easy to see what it means to the legendary lazy bee. Windmill in the wind,
Russell, I was I'm kind of overwhelmed by having done this podcast. The level of emotion that comes through in this film, and then you listen to Alan tell little personal stories throughout the video, and then the story he told here, pretty remarkable. And I would really invite people to visit AlanDayAuthor.com. That's AlanDayAuthor.com. There's about a 5-minute video on the Lazy Bee. It's really worth visiting. And I want to honor you as well, Russell, for being involved in so many projects like this. And the fact that you are an author as well, just like Alan is, and how much you go out of your way to try to preserve this lifestyle.
Well, I mean, it's probably more than I deserve for sure. I think that, my wife told me the other day, she said, well, I was thinking about maybe you could retire after all, because she's always said you are not allowed to retire at any time. You work till you die, because that's best for you. And I thought, I don't really want to retire, but I think the clarity of hindsight and the elegance of the look back that Alan has, because you don't have time to appreciate or really put this in perspective when you're living it, right? You're living history, but you're too busy living history. And so he gets to look back now and with that clarity of hindsight, and is able to put it into the perspective that it deserves, such as that moment with Claude.
Yeah, pretty remarkable.
Well, that's a wrap, folks, and we thank you for being a part of our time together at the Cowboy Up podcast. My name is Stan Husted. It's my privilege and pleasure to be a part of the distribution production chain that makes this possible. And our organization is called the Cowboy Spirit Radio Network. And we'd love to hear from you how perhaps we could help you in 2025 be on the radio, doing just exactly what these good folks are doing. They've got songs to sing and stories to tell, and this is the year to do just that. This program has come to you from the White Stallion Ranch in Tucson, Arizona, and they're ready for you to come and join them. Yes, get away from some of that cold weather into the warmth of a new cowboy experience, maybe for the first time. Discover what the guest ranch, dude ranch, the cowboy experience could be. So check them out at whitestallion.com. That's whitestallion.com. We'd love to hear from you. The Cowboy Up Podcast at gmail.com. The Cowboy Up Podcast at gmail.com. That will bring it to you. So, again, thank you. All the best and blessings to you as we seek to have a better year to really thrive in 25. Till next week, bye for now.